Welcome to On Top of the Covers, a weekly podcast by Orlove, dedicated to all of you amazing human beings out there, the creative visionaries and the entrepreneurs and the artists, the makers, the disruptors, everybody that is in a way connected to music, the culture of music. And we love doing this every week. We feature inspirational stories of people contributing to that culture of music. And we look at how they're doing it, whether creatively or artistically, professionally, personally. It's this common bond, right? Music is a global common bond. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we all really want a lot of the same things. And so we want to open up conversations of the art, the contributors, their missions. Welcome to the show. I'm Matt Gottesman, your host and director of the Orlove brands. You can connect with us online at We Are Orlove on Insta. You can also reach out to me at Matt Gottesman on Instagram. I would love to connect with you guys. As many in the community know, for the last 8-9 years, I answer each and every single DM, text, reply, response. It's been a journey, but I truly, truly appreciate getting to know all of you along the way. And, we're here to really show you unconventional ways and different paths to success. So we're going to dive right in. I've got another incredible guest. I can't wait to talk to her, especially after looking at her background. Nikisha Bailey. She's the VP of A&R Admin and Operations for Artist Partner Group. Incredible background, which, I'll get into here in a minute. And we're going to talk a lot about community and mentorship, financial literacy. When I had reached out to her and I said, what do you want to talk about? And that was on the, some of these were on her mind. And I was thinking financial literacy is so important for artists and creators, especially. Sometimes it's not as sexy that people want to do, but you start to feel like you have a lot more understanding and control of your creativity and your art. You have to manage you, or other people might manage you. And it's okay to have some people help in your management of you, but it's really good to know these types of things along the way and be surrounded by good people. So as I mentioned, Nikisha is VP of A&R Admin and Operations for Artist Partner Group. She provides an invaluable creative perspective to the facilitation of A&R operations, artists and repertoire, although a lot of you guys who follow know this, but just in case. And she does it for some of the world's most recognizable artists, producers, and songwriters. Extending her influence throughout the music and culture, she also serves as secretary for the Recording Academy's New York chapter and is an ambassador for the Black Music Collective. She owns one of Philadelphia's renowned coffee brands and community space, Win-Win Coffee Bar, which I can't wait to talk to her about that as well, and serves as co-chair on Women in Music's Diversity and Inclusion Council. And, no matter what she does, she's the executive. I understand this when I was reading her bio initially, the executive, the entrepreneur, the people manager, the philanthropist, probably a million other roles as well too, which we'll dive into. And she's been building on her lifelong commitment to music first and foremost. She was recently a recipient of Urban Skin RX's Community Changemaker Award, listed on Forbes' Next 1000 list, and slated as Billboard Power Player in 2020. Nikisha, you're awesome. I try to understand. I love this. I try to understand art. This was key. It really connected with me because Nikisha had a really great quote, and I want to share with all of you listening. I try to understand artists on a musical level before anything else, she says. That's how you build lasting trust, by showing a real love and appreciation for music, because it brings people together. I want that love for music to be my signature in everything I'm working on. That, my friends that are listening, is how you tap into someone's soul, when you actually are really being present and understanding who they are and where they're really coming from. That's really where trust is built from. So she's a St. Louis native, went from playing bass and tuba throughout high school to achieving a Bachelor of Arts in Audio Engineering from Webster University. She kicked off her career as an intern at Atlantic before eventually becoming an A&R admin assistant in 2011, became A&R admin manager for Def Jam Recordings during 2015, and worked on chart-topping multi-platinum releases for the likes of YG, Janae Aiko, God, I love her, Lil Durk, acting as label liaison for producers, studios, engineers, and musicians. And 2018 saw her return to Atlantic in the role of head of A&R admin, artist partners. And since rejoining the company, she's worked with key records for talent such as Kalani, Lil Skies, Young Boy, and many others. So welcome to the show. Thank you for being here, Nikisha.
Matt, thank you for having me. And thank you to Orlove. This is so awesome. I feel like I got to trim that bio a little bit.
No, I love it.
Thank you.
I love it. And, I always say it's important to celebrate the journey, because often you're moving, you're making so many things happen. And yeah, we get awards, but what do? We celebrate for about 5 minutes. You're like, I got to get back to work. So we get to celebrate you.
Yes,
so there we are. I was mentioning before the show, typically what we do is, we have the rapid fire questions. And I know that there's shows out there that do that, but they always put them at the end. We like putting them at the beginning because it's just a really cool way to get into the minds and creativity of the guests. So if you're ready, without further ado, we can jump right into those rapid fire questions.
Let's do it. Coming in hot. I like it.
Yes, exactly. And I love this. The first question, the first two are my favorite, but first is probably my most favorite. If all music is gone from the face of the earth, I don't know, Armageddon's coming, whatever, God forbid, but like it's about to be wiped away. If all music is gone, you can save 3 albums and only listen to 3 albums for the rest of your life. What would they be?
I can only listen to 3 albums. I'm going to give my perspective because I think that helps people understand. So I'm going to think about albums that touched my life at different points in my life and just really changed how I thought about music. The first one I would say would be Mars Volta, their first project. I'm really bad at album titles. So I think it was like Deloused and something. But I just remember hearing that and hearing those crazy drum patterns and bass riffs. And it was like a fusion of like rock and jazz and all this crazy sounds. And I just like listened to it over and over because I was like, how are they playing like this?
That's a good one.
Second one I would say is Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, Mad City. I feel like when I heard that one, I'm not from Compton, but I feel like I was rolling through the streets of Compton with Kendrick in that minivan. And then to hear, after I listened to it, I found out that you're supposed to be like a car ride. I was like, I actually felt that. And I felt like the A&Ring and the song choice and Kendrick himself were just like, I never experienced anything like that in my generation, like that I could actually see a star being born. And then I love to dance, love to have a good time. And I think an album that makes me want to do that is Kaytranada's 99.9%. Like, there's not a song on there you can't dance to, you can't have fun to. So those would be my 3 choices.
Those are such good albums. So good. And noted on the Kendrick Lamar, Good Kid, Mad City. Wow. Yeah, I remember when I first heard that, I was like, you know where this is going. And to this day, I mean, and I was grateful to see when he won he won the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Right, the Nobel for his music and his words and writing. So amazing. Okay, so question number 2, and sometimes this relates to question number 1. Name an influential person, living or non-living. I always stress that this person could be any person throughout all of history. They do not have to be alive. But if you could interact with them for one night, who would they be and why?
I think that person for me, because I feel like she's been like a mantra for me in my musical career and just pop culture, any type of culture, is Khalees. Like, I feel like we could be best friends. We could have coffee, get our nails done. We could talk about music. We could talk about food. But I feel like for like a young woman, for me, she's been like so influential in like her style, her hair. I remember when she cut her hair, I cut my hair. Her music's been incredible. And she's been someone who's been able to like just pivot and do different things outside of having her music career. She's been able to be an entrepreneur. She's a chef. She's a mom. She has a family. And I just think she's been able to like be her authentic self that entire way.
She really did grow up in front of all of us.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like I grew with her. Like,
yeah,
I'm not sure. We're probably close in age, but I just feel like I was along that journey with her, like her entire way, like the ups and downs. And she just felt like she handled like her losses just as well as her wins. And she just seems like a really cool ass chick.
Right.
I would love to hang out with.
You're right. She's 41 years old. So she's close to our age. She's close to my age. At least I don't know your full. but
I'm almost there. 36, almost there.
Oh, yeah. All right. You're a baby. Okay. And she experimented a lot in front of us with her, at every phase, right, of her growth. So I can imagine, and yeah, the influence that she had on a lot of people growing up. So amazing. Okay. Question number 3. In your opinion, what's the best music-focused film of all time for you? Now, I also stress this can be a documentary, a rockumentary, a series. It could be a fictitious movie. It doesn't have to be, real. But music is somehow intertwined and is at its core a focus.
I'm going to say Little Shop of Horrors, the one that came out in, was it the 80s?
Yes.
With Rick Moranis. because I tortured my mom and I literally watched that movie every day after school. I would come home and I would have to watch it, and I memorized like all the singing, the dance moves. And I think that's when I realized that I really love music, just because I was like obsessed with that movie as a child. I'm gonna like cheat with this and name a second one, because that one like influenced me as a child, but as an adult, I would say when The Black Godfather came out, the story of Clarence Avant, that was so inspiring, because I've never heard about him, and I'd been in the music industry for a few years, and he had unlocked so many doors, and he was such a pioneer in so many avenues of music business that I was like, wow, he did all of this behind the scenes, and he was just so instrumental in so many like big deals of his time. And that really like showed me that like, you know, you can kind of be off the radar if you choose to and still make an impact.
Yeah, but both of those great choices, you know, Little Shop of Horrors, I definitely remember as a child as well. And The Black Godfather, what a great story. I mean, he did a lot for a lot of people. And he, you know, at times didn't even really ask for help, which was interesting, until he got to a point where he's like, I need some help, you know, because he never really called in the favors. He helped everybody get connected, make these things happen. And, you know, and then later on, he's like, all right, I'm calling it a favor. I'm calling it Audible. And it's a really interesting story. And to your point, how you can be behind the scenes and have major lasting impact on everybody. He was connected to everybody, right? So
such an inspiring story.
Yeah. Okay. So, and in number 4, an important book, podcast, Audible, a YouTube channel. It can be really any kind of like a platform if you want as well, but something that has helped you navigate your creativity and passion. It could be an author in particular, something that has helped you navigate your creativity and passion.
So I'm going to think of something that I got turned into recently, because I've never really been a podcast person, but over the course of like the past year and a half, like I've really gotten into podcasts. It's this podcast called Access and Opportunity, and it's hosted by Carla Harris, who, again, I've never heard of this woman before now, but she's one of the most influential Black women on Wall Street, and she's like a major player in the finance industry. And she not only touches on like finance in her podcast, but just like being a woman of color, operating in different industries, operating in business, being an entrepreneur. How do you get access to capital? How do you how do you create generational wealth? How you do all of that, just one person. And like, it's just been so also, again, very inspiring for me. And I've learned about so many different people who started in music and switched over, started in journalism and switched over, who just kind of repeatedly reinvented themselves and are still very successful, and were able to create access and opportunity for other people.
I love that. I'm going to have to definitely check out her podcast. And the concept of multidisciplinary thinking, finance, opportunity, doing things differently, moving across industries, you know, applying different skill sets across those industries. I have found the same. It's you know, and we're living in a very unique time where we can do that publicly or through our platforms and talk about these things and give access and opportunity to other people, you know, to play on her words, access and opportunity to other people as well too. And it's a grind. I mean, you know, yeah, it's a grind. It really, really is, you know, and I mean, I can imagine in a lot of the different, you know, things that she touches upon, but just in general, it's all a grind, especially when you're mentioning about, you know, and getting into different industries. And yeah, there's something spiritual going on in that as well too, in my opinion. You know, I'm like, really? Like, I think I was rejected from every single corporate job. I've always been an independent. I was rejected from every single corporate job. So when people are like, you don't know what it's like, I'm like, not one hired me. What are you talking about? You know, I had to pave my way, you know, but that's a spiritual thing. And, you know, and so we have to learn it as entrepreneurs. We have to learn it. And so, yeah, I'll definitely check her out. To that, I want to bring all the focus and attention back to you. I know I mentioned your intro and I gave your background, but I would still love, you know, before we go into some of these other concepts, which will bring even more context to those concepts, you know, you talking a little bit more about your, you know, the journey that you've been going through on your way to where we are today. You know, again, I know I gave the highlight reel, but I would love to hear more of the intricate, you know, parts that how'd we get here? What was the spark that got you into the music industry? And then kind of a couple of the moves you made along the way and what you were learning.
I think like a lot of people, I naturally loved music, and in school, in like middle school and high school, I played instruments, and I played them pretty well. And I thought that I wanted to be a musician. And I got to college and realized that I don't have the dedication for this. Like, this is highly competitive on a level I'm not ready for. So I thought about ways I can still be close to the music, still be active, around like the magic. And that my school offered an audio engineering program. I was like, all right, cool. I can be the person that hits record, cool with the musicians, still soak up all of that energy. So I went to school for that. And I was fortunate enough to have some professors who were pretty big engineers when they were doing that as their main source of income. And they worked at New York, and they worked at Right Track and all these big studios and at Sony Studios. And they were like, at this time, like when you had to actually move to get a job, they were like, if you really want to make it in the music industry, you either have to be physically in New York or LA, because that's just where the work is. That's where like people are consistently moving, and you need to be in the mix in one of those cities. So I decided to move to New York after graduating college, and one of my professors helped me get an internship at Sony Studios. And I was there for about a year, didn't get hired. And I was like, okay, so now I'm in a new city. I've actually seen a lot of the biggest stars that like I grew up listening to. So I was enticed by that. Being in the studio, I saw like LL Cool J and Mariah Carey and Britney Spears. I was like, all right, this is where it's at. And so actually I went back to school, because most internship programs, you had to get like college credit. So I just enrolled for like this one-off credit and just applied to as many internships as I could. And I ended up, I think I was like a last stitch candidate, because the person who actually interviewed me at Atlantic was like, somebody bailed, and, are you still interested in this internship? And I was like, of course.
Yep.
Okay. And that was actually in the music video department, which I liked music videos, but I was like, all right, I'll just take it to be in the building. And I interned at Atlantic for about another 6 or 7 months. And then position became available in A&R, and that's how I got started. Like, it was like a 2.5 year journey from moving to like a new city, working for free, trying to pay rent, but then ultimately finding a home at Atlantic as an assistant.
I was taking some notes on what you were saying. Very important thing that you said. At least I found it very important. Well, a couple of things. You said, I went back to school and rolled to one-off credit just to get the internship. And you're like, when you were offered in a different department, I'll take it just to get into the building. That's the part that I think sometimes people forget, because you get a lot of people with like attachments and expectations of like, well, I want to be in this industry, or I want to do this, I want to do that, or, all these things. And you're like, just like, I don't care if you have to crawl through a very, really small side window, just get in and like learn the people and take the blessing. And I think sometimes people, they forget that, because they're like, no, it has to be this. You're like, no, you're given the gift. Take the present, be present,
just do it.
Right.
And like, being that I've seen people who've interned in finance, who've gotten jobs in marketing, like it's kind of just about being there and people getting to know who you are. You can go anywhere. You just have to get in.
Yeah. Such a, interestingly enough, people who get the internship in finance and then end up in marketing, because normally those two departments do not like each other. Finance is like, you're spending all this money, and marketing is like, how else are we going to get sales? Yeah. But maybe it's because the marketing data scientist in my brain is like, because I'm very data driven. It's like, well, yeah, but when you apply numbers to marketing, it makes the financial side very happy. Like, oh, we can actually track it, and here's why we're doing it, and here's our returns. And they're like, oh, you're talking our language. You're like, actually, you two need each other as departments. So it's cool when they move from one to the other. So you've been at Atlantic, and you've had all kinds of different positions within that journey as well. One of the topics I mentioned before the show, and that you want to talk about, the importance of building community in your career journey. And it seems like between your professors and when you were doing internships that you didn't necessarily want, you're always all about like, let me put myself into the community of where I'm trying to be, and then let me see what relationships form from there. But I would love for you to expand on that, because in any industry, it's about our reputation, our character, and establishing really good relationships along the way. But I would love to hear your thoughts and take on all that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I realized early, like there's so many things that happen in the music industry that day to day that sometimes you can't provide answers to people. Sometimes you don't know the answer for people. Like a lot of the times you're talking about money, you're talking about publishing, you're talking about creative property, like things that really determines people day to day. And you just have to be honest with them and, not act like you have all the answers. One thing that I love to say is like, I don't know, but I can figure it out for you. And I think just having that perspective, like I've never heard any of this language before. I don't really know how royalties are collected or how advances are paid, but being willing to like ask questions to those who have done this much longer than I have and provide answers to people, even when I didn't have the answer they wanted, really helped me. I think also just going back to Kendrick, when I was an assistant, he had just got signed to Interscope, and I was like, I don't know who TDE is, but I feel like they're amazing and I need to like know them. So organically, I reached out just like as a fan and someone new in the music industry. Like I knew all of Kendrick's like back mixtapes and like solidified a relationship with them as an assistant, which like I think dumbfounded a lot of people. Like I could get Hunt or Top on the phone when like they weren't dealing with industry people. So I think just like having that, it's always about the music. It's always about the connection. It's always about wanting to help people any way that I could is really one thing that really helped me solidify my community.
You brought up a really great point with Kendrick. It's interesting to hear him and Top Dog's like rise. My friend Josh Binder is their attorney since the beginning.
Yeah.
And so
shout out to Josh.
Right. Josh is an amazing human being. I love that guy. And I remember when the first time I was sitting in his office, he was telling me the story. And I'm like, man, like, talk about a journey. But to your point, it was cool because you were about the music. They weren't about the industry. And you had the humility to be like, do you need help? Can I help? I'm interested and I follow along and I know the music. And I think that's also sometimes a part that's missing, from a lot of people is they're so concerned with getting there, right? Getting there. And I'm like, be here. Mm-hmm. And when you were saying, don't act like you have all the answers. You, in a lot of ways none of us do. And nor would you want to try to pretend like we do. It's such an advantage, but like, you know what? I actually don't know, but I know exactly who to ask. Let me get back to you. And then the follow through shows them like, wow, thank you. And you're like, yeah, no problem. I got you. Makes people feel so like relieved in a lot of ways because, it's so easy. Again, everything's so character driven, internal driven, spiritual. A lot of times people are like, oh yeah, I don't know. I'll get back to you. And they never do. So building that community and that trust is so important. It probably, really helps people rely on you because you're reliable and consistent, right?
I think so. I think even what you mentioned, like, I'm not sure how you're able to respond to every DM, but it's so interesting. I recently hired like a family friend to help me respond to people on LinkedIn because it was just so much. But I'm like, I feel like I have to respond to everyone that reaches out to me just to let them know, one, I'm a real person and that I am watching. And so it was like, even then, I like the point where you said about just trying to respond to everyone. It's something that's like really important to me because like, I know what it's like not to get a response to an email. And even if it's not the response you want, like something is better than nothing.
So true. And, there's so much going on in answering people's texts because you learn so much about what the people are feeling, like what's going on, what are they interested in, what's on the top of their mind. And also it's a lifeline. And sometimes like we go so hard for our work so that when somebody's, even if they want to drop a compliment, I'm like, whew. You know what? Right back at you. Like, thank you for the perfect timing. Like I could use, and they think that we don't need it. They're like, oh, you got it all under control. I'm like, I have none of this world under control. I have my actions under control and I'm going to just keep being a better human. That's about it. So,
yeah,
but you're right. There's a human behind our work and our brand. And I think, and people really appreciate that you do that, especially, if they're trying to understand the music industry. And what a beautiful opportunity for you to help also educate them on like, hey, here's like some things you really need to think about, Do you get a lot of questions in general about navigating the industry?
About navigating the industry, how to get into the industry, how to network in the industry. One thing actually that we were just able to do with Women in Music through our D&I chapter was our internship program, this was our inaugural cohort, in which like we were able to get, I think, about 15 to 20 candidates paid internships. Like wanting to like do things like that and actually affect change and kind of like show people that like there are people who actually say what they mean. Like everyone says they want like to have opportunities, they want to see diversity and inclusion, but like be able to like be a part of an organization and have that community around me that also wants to actually be like effective change makers go so far. And I think it really shows people that like there are people that like put actions behind their words.
So true.
Because the music industry, I love it, but it's full of words a lot of the time. Like back to like networking and going to all the parties and like my 10 years, like how much talking did I do? How much missed interaction, or oh yeah, we'll do this. How much of that actually happens? And I'm just like, I want to be like a beacon for actions behind my words. Like, and even if I'm not successful at it, like I'm gonna like let people know that I tried to do something.
And that's remembered and that's relied upon. And I think in the long game, which I'm an advocate for always preaching out against, is that you may not see it now, even if you're the one trying to enact it and actually, execute on the ideas. And they may not necessarily go anywhere, but people are watching and they always see it and they know exactly who to rely on, even 5-10 years from now. And it's just like, hey, remember when Nikisha did this? Like, yeah, like she's the one we should have head this initiative up, or this business up, or whatever it might be. And so I feel like whether in the entrepreneurial world, the online world, or the corporate world, like showing that initiative and like, you know what, I want to be more than words. People remember that. I always say we're always being watched, whether they're seeing whether we're going to fall or which is fine. I'm all good with that too. Like, hey, and if I fall, I'll totally own it too, by the way. But
yes.
I'm willing to leap forward and see where it goes, all the way to like, I really hope he succeeds. Like, I really hope she succeeds. Like, let's see where she goes with it. They're rooting for you. You got everything in between, but yeah. I wanted to ask you, again, one of the other topics that you had mentioned, and it's interesting because it did come up when you were talking about Carla Harris, about financial literacy. Huge topic. Thank God it's becoming more fun to talk about, sought after to talk about, because of you see different accounts online, you see different podcasts, especially talking about information that simplifies and helps rethink something that, kind of used to be really, really thick beforehand, and also not taught, the way we learn from doing. It's taught in schools completely different. And I totally get it. I mean, it's not saying that in schools, and I went all the way, and it still was like lost until I actually started like working with my bookkeeper, working with my financial advisor, when I was like, just walk me through what I need to understand. And then it was cool. Then I was like, okay, this makes sense. But I would love to get your take on financial literacy, and we can go down a rabbit hole, but I think it's so important for whether you're a business executive and an entrepreneur, which you're both, you're this amazing businesswoman and entrepreneur, and managing people as well. And then the artists and the creatives, they got to learn this stuff. They cannot they cannot not afford to do it. They have to, especially where we're heading, especially in the new blockchain Web 3.0, which is like my geek out place. But because they're going to be managing a lot more of their own stuff, that's where freedom comes from. So I would love for you to just go on a rabbit hole of like, your thoughts on it, financial literacy, and where do people begin that journey too?
So I think for me, it started like I didn't grow up learning about finances. Like I knew that you worked and you collected a paycheck, and hopefully after you paid everything, you had something at the end of the paycheck. And so when I got into the music industry and I saw how much money I was cutting for very young people, a lot of like hip hop artists, so the Black and brown community, I kind of like just broke it down to like, I'm literally injecting millions of dollars into these communities. Like, this is how you change your life story. This is how you create generational wealth. This is how you change the dynamic of the world, is through capital. And I'm like literally playing like a small role in giving people access to this capital. And so I've always had that at the back of my head, like, you know, when dealing with like helping producers getting like their advance and them not knowing what a W-9 form is or not having a bank account, but like, hey, this showing them, hey, this bank is in your, which zip code, this bank is in your neighborhood. All right, if you go there, you have to take this and this, like just trying to like help people as much as I can in that early stage. And then like recently, like I feel like it's been like such a hot topic of financial literacy and capital, like because like those are things that can really change the Black community and how we do create generational wealth. Like I said, where we're seeing like labels and different like brands and like people stepping in and kind of like touting that same flag and just really like creating resources like through the BMC and the Recording Academy. We just filmed this incredible conversation with MC Light, who spoke about how like she has 12 sources of income outside of her music. And I was like, oh my, like, what the heck? Like, just showing that, like, you know, she understood early that she was seeing all of this money and she needed help. And she brought in a close financial advisor who was able to help her do all of the different things she wanted, but still do music, but be able to, like, put her money in different places, in different pockets. Like, you get $1 million advance, you can do so much with that, with the right team and the right knowledge, and really taking the time to like educate yourself on what it means to have capital, what it means to be working on having like a great credit score, what it means to like buy property, buy real estate, and how all of that affects like you and your current, while still making awesome, incredible music, but really setting yourself up for success, which creates opportunities for other people to set themselves up for success and just like creates a whole like domino effect for people.
You bring up so many great topics. MC, I did not know she had 12.
She said,
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Damn.
Yeah. You know, it was interesting. I was recently looking at all like CeCe Peniston stuff. She followed one of my other accounts, and I was like, hey, it's nice to meet you. You know, I was like, I remember your stuff growing up, and it was just cool to see how many other businesses and how many other places that they're earning revenue. But you bring up a really good point, because I think sometimes artists, and in a lot of different industries, and it doesn't have to just be music, they get focused on, I'll make the money solely from the music and the streaming and all that. I'm like, I think it's better to take it, treat it like you're, you know, still broke, take the money, and where else can you create other sources of income and diversify? And hopefully last year also kind of taught, because a lot of people, you know, stopped touring, and that diversification is so important. And I feel like sometimes people get, you know, they can be one dimensional, like, oh, you know what I mean, I can make money in all kinds of different ways. I'm like, yeah, strategically you really can. My favorites growing up watching were Jay-Z and Nas, like seeing what they were doing behind the scenes, because they're tech. They love tech. And Jay-Z was just brilliant. Even what he did with like Armand de Brignac. I mean, he's got like, right when he was like even promoting, I'm like, yeah, he owns part of that company. Like, don't let him tell you otherwise. I'm like, I know how the liquor industry works. So you bring up great points. And it's nice to see that the topics are being brought up more. Are the artists, are they asking, like, are they also being like, hey, listen, you know, I want to learn more? Are they also coming to you guys? And
so one thing that I've been able to develop over the past year, which is something that I hope can be industry wide, is like an onboarding system for anyone that signs to our label. To let you know what the heck we do, because a lot of people sign to a label and they don't know what are all these different departments, what are all these different people, and how do they help me, and like how do they partner with me. And then offering them, like, you know, I send everyone the Donald Passman book of like, you should read this, you should have this. And then ask them, like, what else are you interested in? Like, we know you love music, you're an artist, you're a creative, but what other interests do you have? Do you like sports? Do you like gaming? Like, do you want to own a home? Like, these are all things that you should be thinking about now at a very early age, which I wish that I had thought about at a very early age.
Right.
And you'll be able to, like, you know, positively affect these things with the journey of yourself as a creative. I think a lot of artists also just think about like being a creative and being in the now, but are you going to be the same artist in 20 years? You're going to keep cranking out mixtapes and albums in the studio like you're doing now? I don't think so. So try to think a little bit like, in the future about how you want to set yourself up, how you want to set your family up. But you can really start that now when you do get an artist advance or with your royalties.
It's so incredible. I like the idea of that mentorship built in, and and even in onboarding of them, like, hey, here's some next steps. It's like, hey, I'm giving you this check, but before I do,
and it's up to you to decide. I will say 100% of the artists though that we've signed in the past year and a half that we've been doing this have been so grateful, so thankful, and they've asked questions.
And I think, it's my theory, it's my opinion, but I think it's because financial literacy is becoming more normalized. There's some pretty cool, epic young accounts on Instagram and TikTok that are like, we're going to talk about financial literacy. And they do it in a manner of just like other accounts wanting to educate. And then it sends people into I hadn't thought about real estate. I hadn't thought about crypto. I hadn't thought about stocks and ETFs. And, I hadn't thought about all these, and index funds. Good to know. Where do I look those up? Follow my account for more. So I'm so appreciative of that, because I feel like that's normalizing these kind of conversations and pulling away the, look, no, you can't get rich quick. Sometimes you get an injection of funds, but you can also lose it if you're not careful. But then also there's a responsibility. And when you take the time to learn the responsibility, thank God that we have access to that information more than ever before, YouTube, Google, whatever it might be, to at least point us in a direction versus, some people think oh, I didn't go to school. That's not an excuse. Believe me, you don't want to go learn it from there particularly anyways, in my opinion. And I did. And I was like, this isn't really helping. So I had to learn from really great mentors, I'm so glad that you guys are doing that and that it's a request. It seems like, do they come to you also with what they're learning out there, in terms of physical businesses and, merchandise and sponsorships and, startups and tech? Do they feel like, hey, do they come to you?
They let me know their interests, and then their manager might be the one to poke around and ask more questions. I'm like, all right, this person, my artist is interested in real estate. What do you know about this market? Or do you know someone who's done this for a while who can talk to me about what if we want to become a real estate agent or have that be on the side, or, start buying property. So they do ask questions, and then that's where I kind of link them with my network and my community.
That's incredible. And, and I like you when you're talking about how being a direct influence right into the community, right? And seeing where that capital is going. And then also feeling that, kind of, protective, I don't want to say mother-like, but, kind of hey, listen, this is a beautiful responsibility you have to help build up the community. And, especially since, I know the importance of diversity and inclusion and making sure hey, we all got to come up. We all have to take care of each other, be responsible.
Yes. I've definitely had the conversation okay, you want to rent a G-Wagon, but I know you don't have a credit card. Being okay to tell that to an artist team.
Yeah.
And they know it's coming from a place of authentic. I'm not saying we can't get it, but just think about where you're spending your money.
Right. I think, didn't Jay-Z say, don't buy it unless you can buy it twice or something like that? Right. And still be okay.
Yeah.
Incredible. And then, and I have to ask, because you also have the win-win, right? The coffee shop win-win. How do you have the time? Well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that because I have 3 ventures and then a head of brand over here. And, so how do you have the time? Really more importantly, I would love to, please walk us through win-win. What was the inspiration in you starting that? How's it going? And please give a shout out so everybody listening can also find it if they're, in the area. Yeah.
So I get that question a lot. How do I find the time? And it's funny, my CEO, who's an incredible man, Mike Karen, when he found out that I had a coffee venture, he was like, how do you do all this? And I was like, I've never had this opportunity before. And I feel I'm definitely one of those persons who has FOMO, who if I can do something, I at least have to try it, especially if it's something that I've always wanted to do. And I've always wanted to own a coffee brand, a coffee shop. That's another sense of community to me. And my partner and I, about 2.5 years ago, had this opportunity to purchase this coffee brand and shop in Philly called Win-Win Coffee Bar. And we were like, okay, let's give it a whirl. We've both never owned a food and beverage business before, but we want to. And, we had some savings. We like backed up with our own finances and we acquired the business. And it was definitely a bumpy ride, still definitely learning as we go along. But we had like wins along with like the not so wins. Like we were voted like, one of the best new bars in Philly. We were written up in Bon Appetit for like our coffee cocktails. I think because we kind of like I had that creative side to me that like we opened up, it kind of became like a community hub too for people. Like we would allow people to come in and like host their poetry events and like their networking events. And we would do open mics, and we really wanted people to, in the community, to feel like they had a place that was like theirs, their own. And like, even if it was just an extension through us. Mm. So
that's incredible.
From that, when the pandemic hit, we couldn't do the in-person things anymore. And we were just like, all right, well, how do we still have an impact? How do we still generate income? Because we still need to do that as a small business. And we like partnered with a local roaster, and we launched like a retail roast of our coffee. We launched the roast in like August, September, and we sold like 2,000 bags before the end of the year, which was crazy. But that just really showed me how much people really wanted to support. And so from there, as if I didn't need another thing to learn, I've been like educating myself on being a coffee importer, a roaster myself, and a distributor. So that's going to be like the next phase of Win-Win, which we're going to like launch in the fall. Going to be Philadelphia's first woman-led Black coffee roaster and distributor. And I really just see it as a way for creating more opportunity for the community, more opportunity for my friends and family, and just like something else that I'm like learning along the journey of my life that I want to do, and we'll see where it takes me.
Well, and again, I think this goes a little bit back to the roots within the companies, leading by example. Like, I don't want to be talk. Let me try it and see where it goes. And I think people get scared all the time of like, well, what will happen? Like, you really won't know until you start. And the cool thing is, if you really like it, you can keep figuring it out. And if you learn that you don't like it, you will have no regrets because you at least tried it. I'm going to eventually pick your brain on the coffee importing, roasting, and distributing. I always said that like in my, I don't know, whether maybe it's like my 50s, or maybe that's when I'll do it. It's tequila and coffee. I want to venture out with agave and mezcals and put me in like Costa Rica or Peru in the middle of a field with coffee. And that I want to figure out coffee. I am a huge coffee like advocate.
There's money in coffee.
Oh my
Starbucks
God.
Is worth how many billions? Blue Bottle just sold for a few millions. Like, it's like the second highest traded commodity in the world, right?
Black gold. Black gold. Black gold.
Yes.
and
so
it's so
like,
good.
What?
And
Wait, I can do what?
Right.
Like, okay, I'm in.
Right. It's cool. And I love, again, we're living in a time where you're seeing a lot of really great opportunity for boutique small brands to get on the market, do D2C, direct to consumer on, online as well. That's just the internet geek of me, but there's so much you can deliver, and when you apply the creativity to it and the community, that's how you grow the sales. So I thought it was great that you pivoted as well. Where they say that most inventions and innovations were created during crises. Whether it was the Depression in 1920, 1929, or even the crash in 2008, all of a sudden we had, Airbnb, Uber, like all of these like companies made. I mean, so the art of pivoting. And then isn't it interesting that led you to the roasting and now the further interest in it? So,
yes,
interesting, in mentoring people on the way, and because you're the creative and entrepreneur and a business savvy person, learning it and constantly being a student of the game. Do you share that with others and say, listen, like, you're not going to have all the answers, but you got to move? People are going to come to us, they DM us or whatever, like, hey, I need to get out of my way. I'm like, yeah, no, trust me, you're just gonna have to do it.
It's so interesting that you asked that, because even amongst like my peers, or even with my partner, who's been my best friend for 10 years, who works in like the health tech world, like, he's like, well, how are you always, you just want to try something, you just want to go, you just want to do something. And I was like, I'm always betting on myself, no matter what.
Yes.
Like, even if it's something that's impossible, I'm going to chip away, fight away to at least like try to get there. I might not make it, but I'm always going to bet on myself. And I think that's something that's very scary for people, especially in the music industry, when you're so tied to an artist's success kind of being your success. Like you work on all these different like campaigns, like the artist has the spotlight, and you're not really used to betting on yourself. You're used to betting on the artist. But I think it just goes back to me growing up and like just always betting on myself to like want better and to do better. And, you know, just because of the situation I grew up in doesn't mean it's the situation I have to be in, and continually like shattering glass ceilings. And I was the first person in my family to move out of Missouri, like to have a corporate job, to get a college education, and just to always bet on myself, even if I might lose.
It's sound advice. And I love when people are like, how do you know? I'm like, what makes you think I know? You know, and they're like, well, yeah, it's working. I'm like, I'm making it work.
Yeah.
You know, so
let me talk to you about all the things that didn't work.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. You know, oh, you see the successes. I'm like, let's document. I'm like starting new concept of just building in public. I'm like, let me show you everything that's going on. Let me just show you everything that's going on. So that way you have a better understanding. But it's a very sound advice. And you also brought up a really good point about it's easy when we bet on an artist, because you also see this when we bet on a company. Because I remember sound advice I got from my father, may he rest in peace, where as a consultant always to all these brands, and I would sometimes treat them like it was my own company. I'm like, how come they're not listening? This is like what's happening. Like, here's the data, here's this, and he's like, it's not your baby, but you have to bet on when you bet on your own thing, it's your baby. But if it's not your baby, and so that's the hard truth. And it's sometimes easy to pour all of our energy, right? And our like, oh, they're talented, they're this or that. Well, so are you. So start betting on yourself. So are you. What do you have coming up? You've got a lot of things happening in general. So feel free to go into each bucket and share like what's happening, what's coming up.
Yeah. So Women in Music, we had our inaugural internship program, which I mentioned.
Yes.
We'll be doing another one for the end of the year, which is super exciting. We have some awesome like D&I programming for the Recording Academy. Like I mentioned, a very up close and personal conversation with MC Light and her financial advisor over the years. And then we're going to see what this roasting thing does. Like, it's been coffee equipment is very expensive. And building out a roaster is definitely something I wouldn't have imagined myself. I don't know really what I'm doing, but with the community, I was able to tap in and get connections to certain people to help me and to guide me. So looking forward to that. And then just to continue to like show people that like, you know, anything is possible. I made it here and so can you. You know, it's about like betting on yourself, like I said, and just being consistent. And if you have a goal, that's something that you really want to accomplish, you've got to work on that every day. Yeah. And I think that's something too that a lot of people don't realize. Like, if you want to be somewhere, you can get there, but you got to work on that every day to get to that point.
Consistency wins championships, you know, and it's on the days we really don't want to get up and do it. I'm like, I'm doing it.
Yeah. You know? Even if we just work on it for 15, 20 minutes, like just do it.
Yes. 1%. I call them 1% sprints. I'm like, just do enough that got you the 1% and then be like, hey, at least I did 1% today. At least at your least, you know? Yeah. I'm actually, I want to, are you still offering the coffee, by the way?
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's on our website.
Perfect. Okay. So please share with the audience, like the websites for Win-Win, the social, your social, anything that you want to share where people can find you, reach out, connect, even with the organizations you're a part of. And if they've got any questions there too, all of it, give all the details.
Yeah, I guess maybe just one hub to hit me with any general questions is just Instagram or LinkedIn is the best for me. Okay. You'll see my smiling photo on LinkedIn. So just Nikisha Bailey, and then Nikisha Bailey at NikiDB, NikiDeebee across all socials. And then for Win-Win information, it's at Win-Win Coffee Bar. So WIN Coffee Bar across all platforms. And you can order the coffee at winwin.coffee.
Winwin.coffee. Love it. It's better be good coffee. I'm going to do like an unboxing on. I'm just kidding.
Incredible. And I can't wait for like these future roasts that I'm about to roast.
That's cool.
I'm excited to roast coffee.
I'm looking forward to seriously learning, what you learn along the way. And then I'll happily dive into that when I get there. And then one more time for your Instagram, what is it again? It's Niki.
It's NIKIDEEBEE. So Nikki DB.
Ah, there you are. So if everybody's watching,
yeah,
there she is. Amazing. You have a new friend.
Awesome. I'm excited. I love new friends.
This was so awesome,
Add
Nikisha.
to the community. We just create a community right here.
That's exactly it. That's the best part of doing all of this. I treat everybody in my world as community, and I love interacting with other communities, and then we're all in this together. We all gotta stay in this together, and we all, to your point earlier about like just constantly, protecting the communities at large in the physical world and in the digital world. Like, hey, like guys, like wherever you're at, we got to keep moving, we got to keep going, we got to keep building, we got to keep creating, and we got to keep taking accountability along the way so we can better contribute to this world. So I so appreciate having you on the show.
Yes, thank you, Matt. This has been awesome. It's been great.
Awesome. May this be your best experience ever in the podcast world.
It's been pretty amazing. So thank you to having me, and thank you to Orlove as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Sit tight. We'll connect here in a second. And just really, really appreciate you. For everybody, for my guest Nikisha Bailey, please check her out online. I'm going to say this again one more time: NIKIDEEBEE. You can connect with her there, and then you can find everything else from there, and Nikisha Bailey on LinkedIn, and then reach out, ask questions. She's all about community. And then winwin.coffee, be sure to check her out there. You guys, listen, thank you all for tuning in to On Top of the Covers. It means so much to us, the movement, everything we're trying to do in bringing all the other aspects of the people contributing to music, but also the world at large. And as you guys can see, it's not always the music, but the music binds us together, but there's more going on. Love all the feedback that's been coming in. Please give us a 5-star review on Apple. It helps expand our show. We really, really appreciate it. Again, you can follow us on all major platforms at We Are Orlove, and myself at Matt Gottesman. Also, if you're listening to this on Apple, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio.com, like 20 other platforms, you guys can also watch this interview on YouTube. So please feel free to watch on YouTube. You can see us interacting. You can ask questions there too if you have any. And we just really appreciate you. Subscribe there, and we're happy to interact with you over there. Thank you guys truly for constantly tuning in. We're out.